February 24th to order at 7:01. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mr. Middlestat, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Burkmeyer.
I am here in Chesterfield, Michigan.
Mr. Moses.
I am here in New Baltimore, Michigan.
Mr. Green.
I am here in New Baltimore, Michigan.
Ms. Knox.
Here in Chesterfield, Michigan.
Mr. Richards.
Here in Warren, Michigan.
Mr. DeRue.
Here, Madison Heights.
Mr. Middlestat, New Baltimore.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into open forum. I just want to remind everyone that the first open forum is specifically for items that are on the agenda. So I don't know if Tech had any input for this one.
We have 3 people that have requested to speak.
Okay.
We'll do Lorraine Whitworth.
Ms. Whitworth?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right, my name is Laren Whitworth. I'm the lead pastor at Watermark Church, used to be the Wood Church, and also director for Feed the Bay here in the Anchor Bay School District. And I just want to speak specifically to the Chinese Foreign Exchange Program, as in they've been a huge help for us in so many different areas as they've joined in on some of the things that we've been a part of as we serve our community, specifically with the Anchor Feed the Bay program. We've had food drives in January, February, the last several years, and I don't know where we'd be without the students that helped us do the collection for all those items. In fact, 2 years ago when we did it, I think I had a group of about 20 boys that we loaded up a U-Haul truck and they followed along, and we went to every elementary school and they spent about 2 hours helping us get all the food sorted, situated, all that stuff. And as part of Watermark Church, we run a after school program at McConce Elementary, and it's just some kids choose sports, some other kids choose crafts. Well, every time we do it, there's a good number of foreign exchange students that have come over to help, and they jump in. Even my son, I take him along. He's in 4th grade at Lighthouse. He's befriended many of the foreign exchange students that are part of this. They're always so good with the kids and so willing to serve and do anything that we've asked them to do. And so I just want to speak to that because just from my personal experience, they have helped in so many ways where I don't know where we'd be without them for some of the things that we regularly do in our community. So that's all I've got to say.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Ruth Champagne.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Ruth Chapman Dorpel.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I would like to speak also about the exchange students, Chinese exchange students. As you know, the relations between China and America are polar opposites. And I believe having the adults of tomorrow here and experiencing America firsthand and finding out that many of the things they have been told are not true. We're not monsters. We are caring and loving people. Many times we share faith with them as we take them into our homes and bring them to our churches because that is where we go, and we are allowed to bring them with us, and they hear things they would never hear in their own country. And I believe this would affect their outlook even when they go back home. And maybe a better tomorrow for all of us, and us also seeing their culture. And my daughter still keeps in touch with 3 different students through texting, and they check in with her, and it's a relationship is built. And so I want to speak in as pro for having those students into this country as exchange students whenever that becomes available again, and not shut the door on this opportunity for them and for us.
Thank you very much.
We have Brian Powers.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
On the agenda tonight, I see there's going to be some discussion about the budget. And going back to the January 27th meeting last month, there was pretty lengthy discussion about the budget. Most notably, the budget shortfall that we're looking at to the tune of close to $500,000. I don't remember the exact number, but it was well north of $400,000. And there's a lot of concern at that meeting over expenses exceeding revenues, and we must get back to a balanced budget. And I see we're going to be talking about it again tonight. So I think what I would like to know, and a lot of people that I talk to would also like to know, is where in the framework of our current district budget does the severance package for the former superintendent lie? Is that something that has already been absorbed in previous budgets and it's no longer being accounted for? Is all or a portion of that in the current budget? Is all or a portion of that coming down the road in future budgets? Where exactly does that severance package lie in our budget? Because that also coincidentally was north of $400,000. And we'd like to know, because at that meeting back in December, that whole scenario kind of came out of nowhere, and it had to be done quickly and it had to be done swiftly, and we got to do it right now. And everyone knows why. It had to be done by December 31st. Anybody who says otherwise isn't being intellectually honest about it. But it's done. Nothing we can do about that. But we'd like to know, where does that budget fall, or where does that severance package fall in the framework of our district budget? Because we had board members here now at the time who expressed some serious concerns about some budget shortfalls that were coming down the road. And do we have the money for this? And is this going to cause even more problems down the road? And those concerns were abruptly dismissed because we got to do it right now. So if you could clarify for the public, please, where in the framework of our district budget does that severance package lie? I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think if you stay tuned, you may get the answer later as we discuss the budget. So
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing hands raised. Are there any others?
I don't have any other at this point.
Okay.
Madam Chamber, I have just a comment. I don't know if it falls in this category, but we recently had a passing of a couple of our extended Anchor Bay family, past employees and board member that died in the last week. I'd just like to recognize and maybe give a minute of silence to remember them. Mary Chappeton was a long-term, mostly kindergarten teacher, and as a kindergarten teacher is the entry into a child's education, and she always did a great job. She was one of my son's teachers, and she did pass this in the last week, and she'll be missed. In addition, Ralph Maselli, a longtime board member, perished this week. He was married to Lynn Hoover, whose husband also served with Ralph, and he died a long time ago. But Ralph was never afraid to speak his mind for the benefits of the children in the district. And again, even after being on the Anchor Bay School Board, he did serve on many things, and as an attorney served many people in the community. So both of those people will be missed, and I'd like to see us offer just a minute of silence in remembrance and respect for their families.
Absolutely. I apologize. Those were not brought to my attention, but absolutely, we would like to give a moment of silence for those past employees and board members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I do have a hand raised from Crystal Ortega. And all of a sudden I lost half my screen of participants. Hold on.
Okay, it let me unmute and my hand went up by accident, but I will join in the conversation in regards to the Chinese foreign exchange students. My apologies on that one. I do think that is a fantastic program, and I will echo the sentiment of the previous speaker in regards to that. You know, my own student has kept in touch with several students who were part of that program via text, social media and whatnot. And I think, you know, when we do have the opportunity to potentially re-engage in that program, we should definitely take advantage of that. It serves our students' purpose. It serves their students' purpose. I know we had planned on a trip for our students to go and visit China in the spring, which would have been canceled at this point anyways, because I believe it would have been following obviously the COVID situation, but it would have been spring of last year. But we didn't have enough participants per chaperone ratio or something to that effect. So it got nipped in the butt a little too early, but that would have been fine. But again, it is a great program, seeing the students, you know, out in the community with the host families, again, like everyone said, attending, you know, whether that be church or, you know, just being in the homes and engaging with the students at our high school. And it's definitely been a learning experience for my own child, you know, teaching someone how to play basketball who doesn't necessarily refer to basketball the way we do, those types of things. So just food for thought for, you know, something for the future. That's it. I'm done. Thanks, Lisa.
All right, thank you. I am not seeing any others. So let's move on into general business. We're going to discuss the budget. And I'm going to pass to Mr. Rathman.
Good evening, board. Yeah, I'll be happy to speak to the budget tonight and also try and address Mr. Powers' question. So I don't know if, I think Anita, you may have that, or can we pull that up on the screen?
Can we pull what up?
Oh, I thought we had the amended budget.
Okay, give me 1 minute. I did not know you were
I'm sorry.
presenting
Okay.
tonight. So give me a second.
Well, while Anita's pulling that up, I can start a little bit of my presentation in advance. You know, this is the amended budget. You'll remember back in June, we brought the original budget to the board. The board passed the budget at that point in time. And we had a essentially a break-even budget at that point in time. Since then, we've got a lot more information, including COVID grants and a number of other things, you know, updates on just our regular title grants, better information about our student enrollment. And so there are quite a few factors that go into an amended budget. And I would say there's hundreds, if not thousands of assumptions that go into creating this one-page document that I'll be presenting this evening. So I won't touch on all of those things, and I know Robin touched on a lot of them at the last meeting, so I will kind of move quickly, but if there are any questions, I will be happy to address any of those. Let me start by kind of talking about the 4 columns that you see there. The first column is the actual audited of last year's financials, and that's oftentimes helpful as you compare budget to budget. It'll be maybe not quite so helpful this year because we did receive quite a bit of federal money for COVID relief. And so therefore the numbers are significantly different, I'd say, this year. The second column over is our original budget. That was the budget I talked about that we ended up passing back in June of 2020. And that was, you can see there, we had about $61,800,000 in revenue, about $61,722,000 in expenditures, bringing us to a revenue over expenditures, or a surplus, of roughly $72,000. You can see in the third column, this is the proposed budget that we are proposing to the board tonight. We'll go through some of that. And then the final column is the variance column. And that just kind of shows you the difference between column 2 and column 3. So that's a good place to take a look at any of the variances that may be occurring. So back in June, maybe we're a little too hopeful that things would return to normal before we came back. One of the big items, I'm going to start at the top there with the revenue, and I'll be jumping back and forth likely between the third column and the fourth column. So you can see there for local sources, we reduced our local sources revenue by about $575,000. That's a combination of quite a few things. The big hitters, though, are obviously we're not necessarily collecting as much in the way of athletic competition money. Our aquatic center has been closed, so we have not been getting fees from that. We have quite a bit less in terms of our SAC programs, which are often, a latchkey or childcare, after school childcare. We don't have the same level of participation there, and then also in our preschool. So you can see there pretty precipitous decrease of about $575,000. Jumping ahead to federal sources, I think I talked a little bit about this. We have received a number of federal relief funds from the federal and state governments, and those are reflected there as an increase of about $3.8 million. And then I'm going to jump down to the expenditures. So a lot of these expenditures, I'm going to talk generally, and then I'll jump into a little bit more detail. But generally speaking, most of these increases that you see are COVID related. So we have not had a significant change really to our operations that are not COVID related. So most of those increases that you will see are COVID related. I'll talk to the instruction first. You can see there that increased roughly $1.8 million. So what's going in there is a lot of technology. We purchased about $1 million worth of technology for our students, though that money is appearing in there as an increase. We also, as you'll recall, split our elementary so that we had full-time virtual teachers, and full-time in-person teachers. There was a cost associated with that as well. That was roughly $300,000 to $400,000. So those are two of the lion's share items that make up that variance. As we come down, you can see there that we do have increases throughout. You can see in our, and to try and answer Mr. Powers' question, you can see there where it says support services general administrative. There's an increase of about $400,000 there. And this is a little bit more complicated than it might look. Certainly a portion of the superintendent's salary was budgeted at the beginning of the year. In fact, the whole year was budgeted at the beginning of the year. However, what was not budgeted was necessarily a year extending from January of 2021 through December of 2021. So we are picking up an additional 6 months worth of cost, basically the July through December. We did not have that in our original budget, but we are including that in this budget. And the reason for that is we operate under a modified accrual basis, which means that if we know of a liability and it's estimable and probable, which in this case it is, we're pretty sure it's going to happen because we signed an agreement, and we pretty much know the amount because it's right in the agreement. We're able to estimate that, and therefore we are required to accrue that under our accrual basis GAAP rules. And I said GAAP, it should be GASB rules. So we went ahead and did that. You see the increase there. Obviously, a large increase you can see in our operations and maintenance. That reflects all of the PPE, all of the desk shields that you saw. It would include also additional cleaning. So we often used some of our parapros and some other folks that were kind enough to assist us in cleaning to keep the facility safe for our students and our staff. That overtime is certainly reflected in there. So you can see that brings us down to a total of roughly $66 million. That is very close to what we had for revenues. We had revenues of 60, if you go up a little bit there, $66,185,000 in revenues. Our expenditures were slightly less than that at $66,102,000. So that brings us back to a revenue over expenditure or surplus of about $82,000. So we're able to achieve, and so I'll just kind of speak to what are some of the big things that happened between this budget and the last budget, because we came in, we were proposing almost a $500,000 loss, and now we're proposing almost $100,000 to the good. So that's about a $600,000 increase. Well, a portion of that increase is related to, we got some good news from the ORS. We received a credit of about $58,000. So we took that credit, and that will inure to our bottom line this year. We also had a teacher that we identified as being eligible to charge to the COVID grant. We talked with our auditors on this. They indicated that it would be allowable to charge this person to that. So we have made that change to charge that person to a grant that helps our bottom line. And then finally, with the direction of the board, we were able to reallocate also some of the new ESSER II money to cover some of the general fund costs. And so that is also reflected in this budget. And really those things, there's a few other things, obviously. Whenever you have a budget of $66 million, there are going to be a number of items that go into any of the changes that are presented here. But those are the biggest 3 or 4 that occurred to allow us to balance our budget, the budget you see before you this evening. So that $82,000 added to the $1.8 million that we finished last year will bring us to about $1.9 million. If you look at that as an expenditure or a percentage of expenditures, it's 2.87. Under a treasury calculation, which is a little different, that's about 3.9%. So that is what we are projecting to end the year. I will tell you this is a snapshot in time with, like I said, hundreds to maybe thousands of assumptions that go into producing this document. And then finally, I'll share with the board that we will come back likely in May and June to the board to present a final iteration of our 2021 budget. So at this point in time, I'd be happy to take any questions the board may have about the budget.
I'd move to approve the budget update as presented then.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Middlestat, supported by Mr. Moses, to approve the budget resolution for 2020-21 school year as presented. Any other discussion?
Just one, Todd, just for clarification, because I'm pretty sure the buyout's going to be paid out over time too, right? Not in one lump sum for the superintendent.
Mike, it is paid out over time. So this is unfortunately where us accountants get a little geeky, and I apologize for that. But we will pay this out over time. But in terms of recognizing it for our books, we actually have to accrue the whole thing as of June 30.
Right. No, I just wanted to, for people, everybody
Okay.
listening,
Yep.
know that it wasn't just going to be one lump taken out, that it was going to be paid out over time.
Do you still see a lot of costs focused around, COVID related costs that you're speaking about?
Yeah, we do certainly have some additional costs. We talked a little bit about, Dennis, the fact that we split our elementary. We will have those costs obviously into the second semester and through the end of the year. So there's certainly some costs there. I think we'll have I think we'll have some additional PPE costs. I don't think there'll be quite as much. I think we'll have some additional technology costs, but not nearly as much as we had in the first half of the year. And that's how we were able to utilize those funds a little bit to help our bottom line. But I also am very conscious of the fact that these COVID funds are one-time funds that we're getting. I would also say to the board that we as administrators understand that we have some very big challenges ahead of us in terms of remediating and making sure that our students are reaching the academic requirements, the levels that are our expectation and that coincide with the standards. So we understand that there is going to be additional programming that is required. And so we're talking, as we look at our grant and how we'll spend the funds that we have coming forward, some of our ESSER II monies and hopefully some of the other monies that have been talked about. We know we have to do remediation, and we know we have to change the way we do programming. We have to look at, smaller class sizes potentially. There's a lot of things that we need to look at in order to remediate our students and again, catch them up to the standards that the state of Michigan has set. So we're being judicious in the use of those funds, knowing that those funds those costs are on the way.
I would just add to what Todd mentioned is that somehow there could be some thought that we get COVID money coming in that'll help bolster our budget and make us whole again, and we'll have lots of money to give out raises and stuff. But as Todd mentioned, we need to utilize those funds for remediation, whether we have a great summer program, reduce class sizes, after school programs. Those monies really need to get allocated to do the best we can for students, since everybody's kind of behind now, and not to anybody's fault, but certainly we got to focus those funds on programs that can get our kids back up to speed and as quickly as possible at minimal cost to parents and students in the district. So we need to keep in mind that those monies aren't out there just to bolster our budget. They're out there to be spent helping kids. So we just got to keep that in mind as we get those additional funds in. That we still have, as Todd mentioned, we still have a structural budget issue that needs to be resolved in terms of how we operate, and these additional funds will not solve that problem. So
yeah, and I'm sorry, Steve, I just follow up with that to say, our teachers have done an amazing job under very difficult circumstances, and we are seeing actually some pretty good test scores coming in.
Yep.
So that's great, but even the best of efforts from our teachers, we know our students are still, a number of them are still falling behind. So
Yep.
I don't mean to at all insinuate that teachers aren't doing a great job. They are. It's just, these are very, very difficult times, and we do have a higher number of students that are going to need that remediation.
Right. I didn't even infer that. I just mentioned that we just need to, a lot of it has to do with time in front of teachers, time in front of instruction, that we keep getting interrupted. So,
yes.
All right.
Any other questions?
All right, Mr. Middlestat, do you want to call the roll?
Yep. Mr. Middlestate, yes. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. We'll move on to bills payable. Usually that's Ms. Randazzo.
Yes, good evening, board. Included in your packet are the bills payable for January. Those January expenses totaled roughly $2,058,000. If the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions at this time.
I make a
move-
motion to,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Mr. Middlestat.
All right, we'll take a motion.
I'd make the motion to accept the bills payable as presented.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion to accept, seconded by Ms. Knox. Any other discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to board policy. The policy committee met a couple weeks ago. By the recommendations of our attorneys, we have a first reading of a policy change. Just a sec, I'm scrolling through all the bills to get to it. And the policy is regarding policy 2006, student bullying. And basically, it's not so much of an addition to the policy as it is a strikeout of specific information. You can see in the board packet. Previously, the implementation of a bullying policy was laid out with specific guidelines and definitions, and it's advisable at this point that we strike out those that information and those definitions, and instead inserted that the superintendent will promulgate administrative regulations to implement this policy. We do remain, there's a verbal assault definition that does remain, but mostly Mr. Green or Mr. Rathbun, do you want to speak to what the policy committee discussed on this a little bit?
Certainly. The policy committee did meet. We did review this policy. And as you mentioned, Madam President, it basically takes out a lot of the specifics of the policy and turns a lot of the coordination and the direction over to the superintendent. I believe that the policy committee supports this first reading and moving forward with this policy change.
So would include it in the regulations, because right now you're striking out that the superintendent's supposed to report incidents of bullying to the board. So we're getting rid of that requirement.
Can I speak to this? Actually, Mr. Middlestat, we're not. What we're doing is all the language that's being struck out is just being moved over to administrative regulations. And then there'll be additional added language for a complaint procedure. But what Miller Johnson recommends is streamlining the policy and moving it to admin regulations. Because this legislation changes often, it would make it easier for us to more rapidly change our procedures on how we handle bullying.
And who did you say recommended that?
Well, it's Miller Johnson. It was formerly Lusk Albertson. Lusk Albertson sold their firm and merged with Miller Johnson.
So who do we have on a different subject though? So
Still the
I believe
same attorneys. It's still
Bob
the same
Lusk was
attorneys.
advising.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still the same attorneys that do policy.
All right, the question that I have is where do board members and the public find these? Now the public and the board can easily find details such as these. Now that we strike them and they're put into a different document, how do we access that, or how is that available for people to see?
The administrative regulations are on the district website, right below the policies.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions from other board members? This is just a first reading, so we don't need a motion or action on this item tonight, but we wanted to bring it out in front. Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on. Under policy, there's a proposed motion regarding electronic board meetings and remote participation. Ms. Gonzalez, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Because of we're under emergency orders, and legislation just recently changed regarding the Open Meetings Act, and we're under emergency orders now. It's been extended to, I believe, March 29th. The attorneys who guide us on our policy feel that passing a resolution through the end of the school year would meet the mandates of the emergency orders and keep the district compliant with, the emergency orders and ever-changing legislation. It's changing rapidly because of the pandemic.
Right. So again, this was kind of just to bring it to a little bit of ease with the board, to keep us in compliance, not necessarily changing what we allow, but just to make it so that we don't have to continue to approve things as we go along, as the electronic meetings get extended by the governor.
Yeah. Instead of continually changing board policy, this resolution would keep us compliant.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and read this resolution for the public. The resolution regarding electronic board meetings and remote participation of the Anchor Bay School District in St. Clair County, Michigan. A regular meeting of the Board of Education, or the board of the district, was electronic on the 24th day of February. So that's just going through what we would sign. But whereas the board recognizes that recent changes to the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.261, et cetera, require the board to adopt policies and procedures identifying the manner and circumstance under which board meetings may be held wholly electronically, and board members may attend meetings remotely. It is resolved that until March 30th, 2021, the board may hold any and all meetings wholly electronically, and individual board members may, for any reason, participate in board meetings remotely. Between March 31st, 2021 and December 31st, 2021, the board may only hold meetings wholly electronically in the event of a local or statewide emergency or disaster that would risk the health or safety of the public if the meeting was held in a physical location. Individual board members may participate remotely in meetings held in a physical location if their absence is due to such an emergency or disaster, military duty, or a medical condition. And beginning January 1st, 2022, board members may only participate in meetings remotely if their absence is due to military duty. It is further resolved that for meetings held wholly electronically, the board will, 1, ensure that members of the general public may also attend electronically and are able to hear and be heard by the board, and 2, post notice of the meeting at least 18 hours and an agenda at least 2 hours in advance of the meeting here at our Anchor Bay website. Notice of wholly electronic board meetings must include why the public body is meeting electronically, how the public may participate in the meeting electronically, including a specific telephone number, internet address, or both if needed to participate, how the public may contact board members to provide input or ask questions on any business that will arise at the meeting, and how persons with disabilities may participate at the meeting. It's further resolved that for meetings in which 1 or more members are participating remotely, all absent board members must announce they are attending remotely, and unless absent due to military duty, disclose the city, township, village, etc., from which they are participating at the beginning of the meeting. It is further resolved that for meetings held in person on or before March 31st, 2021, the board will, to the extent feasible, ensure adherence to social distancing and mitigation measures as recommended by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention for the purpose of preventing the spread of COVID-19, including, if applicable, face masks and maintaining 6 feet of distance between persons not living at the same household, and adopt the heightened standards of facility cleaning and disinfection to limit meeting participant exposure to COVID-19 and protocols to clean and disinfect in the event of a positive COVID-19 case in the board's meeting place, as provided by the CDC at CDC website. It is further resolved that the board will replace its current policy regarding electronic meeting and remote participation found under policy 1002 with the following: electronic meetings and remote participation in accordance with the OMA for meetings in which any board members attend remotely, the following conditions must be met. The board secretary must include the name of each board member attending remotely in the meeting minutes. Board members attending remotely must hear and be heard by other board members and those in attendance at the meeting. Board members attending remotely must notify the board president at least 1 business day before the meeting that they will participate remotely to allow the board president to make arrangements to notify the general public of the means by which it may contact the board members prior to the meeting. And the board president must take steps to ensure the general public is aware of the manner any board member attending remotely voted on any and all matters brought before the board for a vote, such as requiring roll call voting. So that would be the resolution. So just for my disclosure, this was not developed, or changed on my accord. This was pretty much just what the governor's orders resolve going forward for meeting participation. I know we had discussed as a board, for having 2 meetings a month, possibly allowing remote participation, but depending on if her COVID rules for meetings get extended past March 31, we may or may not be able to do that. So that's why this is here. Unfortunately, it's not any board member or administrator that is imposing this. Okay, so is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
So a motion by Mr. Moses to approve the proposed board resolution regarding electronic board meetings and remote participation. Is there support?
Actually, Lisa, I have a quick question. It's going by the CDC guidelines. I know a lot of MDHHS guidelines were a little bit different or more strict for our state. So I'm just wondering if there's, if that should maybe also be added.
You're asking to add,
Or if there is much of a discrepancy between what the CDC allows and what our state allows.
Jill, if I can speak to that a little bit, the CDC, what the CDC suggests are merely that, suggestions. They are not binding upon us. The state of Michigan MDHHS orders, however, are binding on us.
And if I could further clarify, what they're saying is that we'll abide by the CDC recommendations to socially distance, to wear masks, and follow those guidelines for preventative measures.
Yeah, and those, like I said, those are recommendations rather than.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I will second.
okay, seconded by Ms. Knox. Any further questions? Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat, no.
Motion passes. We'll move on to personnel. We have a requested personal leave of absence beginning January 12th, 2021 through the end of the school year.
Yes, it's a request from one of the teachers from the high school. She's been out on a leave since we returned to face-to-face in October, and she is requesting a leave for the remainder of the school year, an unpaid leave of absence through the end of the school year.
So she has an approved one already for 6 months?
Well, she was out on medical, a federal provide, FMLA, and her FMLA has expired and she still has a need to be
Okay,
out, so she's requested an unpaid leave.
okay.
Okay, is there a motion to, for this item
So moved.
Yeah, I'll
to
second.
approve? So Mr. Green makes a motion to approve the leave of absence as presented, seconded by Mr. Moses. Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Ms. Middlestate, yes.
Motion passes. We're gonna move on to the China Link agreement. Mr. Rathbun, do you want to present on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that. This should be fairly familiar to this board. We have a 5-year agreement with China Link. We're going into that last year of that 5-year agreement. Each year, it comes before the board, typically in December, to look at the agreement and renew it for the following school year. So the school year that is under consideration for the board this evening is the 21-22 school year. And I would say that, it was extended past December to February in order to give us a little bit more time to consider the program, and also due to COVID, have a little bit better understanding of maybe where we were. So that was the reason for the delay this year to move that to February, and is before the board this evening.
Okay. Is there a motion for this item?
Perhaps before we do move on to a motion, Mr. DeRue and the Finance Committee and I met on earlier this week. And a couple of things I think, and Mr. Rathbun, correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't take any action, it automatically renews tonight. That's the first thing. And then the second thing would be, I just wanted to share, and again, Mr. Rathbun, correct me if I'm off here, my numbers, that the first 3 years of the program, roughly, on average, we put about $500,000 to our bottom line through this program. And that obviously included all the expenses from converting the dorms, the janitorial, purchasing the van, all the other different things that we did, or leasing the van, whatever that was. So Mr. DeRue is the chairman, so I apologize if I'm stepping on your toes here from our meeting on Monday, but we did talk about it, to make sure that we were prepared for tonight's meeting. And I want to point out a couple of those, points before we do move on to a motion to either approve or not approve.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Green, one thing, a couple things maybe I might add to that is, currently I've had some communication with the gentleman from China Link. We do not currently have any students signed up for the 21-22 school year. I think that's a direct result of the U.S. Embassy just not being open to issue any sort of visas at this point in time. We would stay in contact with China Link and would only perform the program in 21-22 if it was financially viable and safe for all of our students. So I will say that, there's really also, based on what we're seeing right now, there may not be any downside whatsoever to allowing the program to go forward into 21-22, because we may not have a program either way. We just may not have the students coming over to go forward in the program. So I guess the point I want to make is you may not have to make a decision tonight necessarily about what you want to do for 21-22. It may take care of itself. And Mr. Green is exactly right. We've transferred, I believe last year, or 2 years ago, $550,000, and last year about $630,000 to our bottom line in the general fund. And those funds are going directly into the classrooms, for our anchor-based students here in the district. So those are important things. And then the last thing I would share is, you may remember we also have a Mandarin program at the elementary level. This program, the international program, is for folks at the high school, sophomores, juniors, seniors, I believe. And so therefore, one is not necessarily tie barred to the other. So the Mandarin program that we have at the elementary is a separate program from this program. So I just want to make sure that all the board members are aware of that.
Correct. Our Mandarin elementary teachers are our own employees. They're not coming through China Link. So that would, anything that does happen on this would not affect that. So as was already said, no action on this item would indicate an automatic renewal. And like Mr. Rathman said, it's kind of been indicated that, unfortunately, there's been no ability likely for students to be able to sign up at this point. Not sure, of course, if any of that could change in the future. But being that it's the last year of our contract, as he said, if we don't have any students sign up and it doesn't go through anyway, of course, then the decision is made for us. And we do have the ability to deny the program, if we only say had a couple students sign up and it was going to pose a cost to us, instead of bringing in revenue as it has the last couple of years. So we would not necessarily be on the hook for, not enough students coming over to make it beneficial for us. So in a monetary regard, I should say. So I will open the floor unless there's any other questions. If anybody would like to make a motion or not make a motion.
Mr. Rathbun, are we up to date payment wise by China Link?
Yes. Yeah, I don't believe we have any liabilities or anything, any monies owing to China Link. Is that your question? Maybe I don't understand your question.
Yeah, is China Link fully current with us payment wise?
Yes.
Okay. And do we get any additional funding outside of the agreement?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a hard time unmuting there. So we receive two streams of income related to the students. We receive a tuition fee that the student or the student's parents pay directly to the school. And then also we receive a foundational allowance from the state of Michigan. So there are actually two sources of revenue for each student.
And from how are the students, are they exceeding high? Like are they doing well when they participate in this program? Any feedback on how well they do curriculum wise?
I think they do very well curriculum wise.
And do you know, I mean, just a general question, do you know if there's a certain percentage that stay here after the program and attend different colleges here in Michigan or elsewhere within the US?
I'll have to follow up, Mr. Richards, on that question. I don't know. I wouldn't want to speak out of turn on that. I don't have a good answer.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know, Mr. Richards, there's some challenges with their visa and how long they're permitted to stay, but similar to Mr. Rathbun, I'd be kind of speaking out of turn if I try to put some expertise into it.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other action, we will move forward unless somebody objects. The next item on our agenda is the MASB Board of Directors election. MASB is the Michigan Association of School Boards. We are actually in Region 8, which encompasses much of Metro Detroit, Oakland County, and Macomb County, particularly. And so these would be board members from other districts, as nobody in our district is running, to participate in the Board of Elections. I'm sorry, for the Board of Directors for the Michigan Association as a whole. So the board previously received information on the candidates that are running in our area, or in our region, I should say. And I will open up the floor if anybody would like to make a motion to support a candidate.
I'd make a motion to support Gina Walker from our neighboring New Haven School District.
I
Sec-
second that motion.
So motion by Mr. Middlestat, we'll say seconded by Mr. Drew. Any other discussion? Personally,
Mr. Middlestat or Mr. Drew, would there be a reason other than they're local that you would have selected this person? Any personal knowledge or anything like that you could impart?
For me, no, yes, she's local, but if you look at her background, she's been very involved in MASB more than I got the time to do, and she's got a lot of background. She's been there for 10 years, so I don't know her personally, but from her resume presented, it looks like she's pretty well involved and probably represent our area very well.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
I've met her a few times at the last MASB training up in Traverse City. And then I know a couple of their other board members and they speak very highly of her. I've talked to her a few times. I think she'd do a really good job representing our area, and we share, a boundary with her, so that helps as well, but she's definitely would be good for the job.
Thank you both.
And I'll just add too, there were 4 candidates, and she is actually the only candidate from Macomb County. The other 3 candidates were from various areas of Oakland County. So to be able to maybe relate to Macomb a little bit more, as we do have some differences at times with Oakland County. So. Okay. Mr. Middlestat, go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Middlestat, yes. Mr. Drew,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards. Thank you.
Yes.
Motion passes. So we will move to union communications. If we have any union, I see Ms. Petron has her hand up. No, I lost her.
Okay.
Yes, now we hear you.
Okay. I just want to say that I really appreciate the last few board meetings, how positive they have been, and how people have been. Excuse me, my child's in a background. It's always fun on Zoom. And also, I just like to thank Mr. Rathbun. He's carved out time every week to sit down and talk to me. And I think that's really important. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other union officials or those to speak on their behalf? Okay. So next item, planning for the future. There is an award recommendation.
Yes, we have the award recommendation for the 2017 bond issue. It's a bid package for Wi-Fi at the middle schools. This was discussed at December's technology committee meeting. This is a progression. We were able to put wireless into the high school. We now have a substantial number of Chromebooks through the COVID funds, and having this at the middle school will just expand our usage of the technology that we have. The recommendation is to award Wi-Fi network bid package to Presidio in the amount of $244,077.41.
Ms. Bannock, can you speak to E-rate and what the cost would be at the end of all of this for the district?
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. The reason we are bringing this to you now is in order to qualify for E-rate, we have to go through a very specific bidding process and make a determination prior to March 25th. E-rate is federal dollars that can be used for connectivity, any type of connection issues. So Wi-Fi would qualify for that. We will get, typically the discount is about 40%. So that would be about a $96,000 rebate that we'll get back after the project is done. bringing the total cost out of the bond dollars about 144,464. When we did the high school, we also qualified for E-rate. So it's close to half, just under half, you get reimbursed.
Right. So just to, just wanted to put that out for the public that while we do front the 244,000 and some odd money, we would be reimbursed for approximately 40% of that.
Correct.
That's why we were looking to go forward with this project soon. Are there any questions, or is there a motion, I should say?
I do have a quick question. I see Mr. DeRue is there to make his motion, but Ms. Bannick, is this the same company we used for the high school?
It is, yes.
Okay, very, very good. So we have a relationship with them. And secondly, remember, board members, we've talked about, and I know technology has talked about, getting into a position where our district is a one-to-one. And in order to be able to do that, we've got to provide the technology at our schools. And we're at the high school. This will get us to the middle. We somehow have to figure out how to get to all of our L's, but I think this is an important piece of achieving that goal. Thank you, ma'am.
I do have one quick question. Is there an annual cost after the installation, or do we have any projected annual cost?
Well, we have that built in. So you'll see in your package, we do have the 10-year because there's licensing and filtering, things of that nature. So that's all factored into that. And Tim, is there anything else? I do think we have a couple annual. I think Tim can pop in on that.
No, when we bid this out, we bid it for 10 years for the licensing for the Wi-Fi for there. So there is no licensing, with Meraki, we're able to get a 10-year license with this. So we're able to use bond dollars. If we use some of the other vendors, they only do like up to 5 years, and then we'd have to do the other 5 years out of general fund.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. DeRue, seconded by Mr. Moses to approve the bid award. Mr. Middlestat, you want to call the roll?
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Knox, Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat, yes.
Okay, motion
very much.
passes. And now we are at our second open forum for public comment. Were there any submissions specific to this one?
Here, we'll unmute Crystal.
Yep, I see Ms. Ortega.
Yeah, my submission was for the second part, but I'll go back to the China link agreement. Mr. Richards, I think you had asked if any of the students possibly had returned to the States for possibly university or college. I do know of two for a fact who have. One is attending a university in California and the other is attending university in Florida. My son is a senior in high school this year. They both are first year students here in the States as of this year. Even with the COVID situation, I don't know how that panned out, but they both were able to make it to the States as freshmen at universities here in the States. So I don't know if that's helpful to you at all, but I can't speak to all of them, but I do know of at least two. Just thought to let you know that. But again, I can't speak to all of them, but that's all I've got. So thank you guys and have a great night.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Okay. We'll move forward with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve it? The consent agenda, which would include the January 24th, February 3rd, and February 10th meetings and financial report as presented.
I make a motion.
I will second.
Okay, motion with Mr. Moses, seconded by Ms. Knox. And any other discussion? Okay, go ahead, call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes.
Motion passes. And now we are to superintendent remarks. Mr. Rathman, do you have any additional comments?
I do. So I'd like to begin by congratulating our 4 Anchor Bay High School student musicians who were selected to the MSBOA District 16 Honors Jazz Ensemble. This honors ensemble is made up of a select group of 17 students from Macomb, Oakland, and St. Clair County High Schools. The District 16 Honors Jazz Ensemble will be taking part in virtual recording sessions and performance with jazz educator and professional jazz musician Chris Johnson. These sessions will take place over the months of March and April. The Anchor Bay High School students and student musicians that were selected for the ensemble include Jaden French, Jonathan Taylor, Delaney Novak, and Colin Arena. So congratulations to them. It's great to see Anchor Bay is roughly a quarter of that entire ensemble, one school out of three counties. So that says a lot about our program. Great job. I'd also like to talk a little bit about, we heard from Pastor Laren a little bit earlier. Pastor Laren and the school worked very closely in a project called Feed the Bay. I think many of you know that. This year we did a food drive and it was a huge success. We raised nearly 6,500 canned and boxed foods for that endeavor. So great job. You also may recall the district invited parents and the community members to volunteer for one of 3 committees, including the right sizing of the district, strategic planning, and a bond steering committee. I am pleased to announce that we had 124 parents volunteer to participate. It is essential that we form close relationships with our parents and our community to ensure their input on important issues impacting our schools. I am pleased to announce the invitations for the right sizing committee were sent out today. If you did not receive that invitation, please, no worries, please be assured that we will be selecting other parents and community members from that same list for our other committees. Thanks again to our amazing supportive parents here at Anchor Bay. Then finally, I would like to share with you an honor that one of our high school students has received, Gianna Manacci, hopefully saying that right. I'd like to congratulate her on becoming a National Merit Scholar finalist. In October of 2019, 1.5 million students entered the National Merit Scholar Program. The nationwide pool of semifinalists represents less than 1% of all of the U.S. high school seniors. My sincere congratulations to Gianna on this amazing accomplishment and best of luck to her in her future endeavors. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you. So we are at board comments. I don't remember who I start with. Let's start with Mr. Moses.
I don't have a ton to say tonight. I just, everybody keep doing a great job. I'm ecstatic that sports are starting to roll again, and that the other activities are starting to roll again. I noticed through some updates on Facebook that we've had some really, really good competitions going on in swim, dive, basketball, all sorts of things going on. I can't wait till everything gets opened up, and everybody be safe, and remember, we are the best, so let's keep moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Richards?
I'd like to say congratulations to the middle school South Students of the Month, Samantha Dufresne, Ronan Nahas, and Christian Pashley. Keep up the hard work. Congratulations to Jackson Flasher, first place at the Youth Ice Fishing Tournament. Congratulations to Tanner Hodgsons on being honored with the Detroit High School Sports Award by the Detroit Free Press. Congratulations to Taylor Wolf for being named the February Student Athlete of the Month. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay JV cheerleading squad on first place and a school record in round 1 at the cheer competition at Lakeshore. Also, congratulations to CTE Students of the Year, Joshua Mayer and Jackson Reed. Congratulations to our BPA award winners, Trevor Bush, Zach Carr, and Noah Rubitz. Congratulations to our DECA award winners, Trevor Bush, Adam Thomas, Ishan John, Owen Johnson, Benedict Wagner, Dylan Myers, and Tanner Hodgins. Just a reminder to everyone that our kindergarten and school choice registration started on February 16th. The Anchor Bay Boosters is having a bottle of can drive that ends on February 25th. For more information, please check it out on the Anchor Bay Sports Booster Club Facebook page, or you can reach out to me. Lastly, close to lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Rathbun and his staff for the board training presentation yesterday. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy day. I'd also like to thank all teachers and staff for everything they do. I'd also like to say, good job the last couple of snowstorms we've had. I know it's hard keeping up with the weather and the walkways and the driveways and everything. So keep up the good work and thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeRue?
Everybody have a good night. Short tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Middlestat?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one comment and maybe challenge their administration in that. I know the summer is a little far off, but you see notices about, the kids all missed their 5th grade band opportunities and trying to catch up. And I'm looking at overall district-wide is that I want to make sure that we just don't have a summer school program this year, that we try to utilize these COVID funds and whatever we can to come up with some very innovative things this summer to attempt to remediate our students. There shouldn't be any reason why we can't do a 5th grade band program during the summer so that we have, when students become 6th graders, they're 6th grade band students. And that's just one example. There's so many other examples of what our children have missed the opportunities. But like I said, we just need to start planning now for something more than just summer school. And I look at it as if it's a 3rd semester of 2021, that we've done what we did a 1st and 2nd semester, kind of a 1st. We're trying to get a 2nd semester going, but I think we should need to have something very innovative, fun, and something that help the parents, benefit the parents, free transportation, et cetera, but gee, we can't lose an opportunity or any time this summer not trying to do whatever we can to catch things up. So I just like to challenge the administration and the staff to come up with some innovation things, and certainly the board will support anything that can do those things. And the funding, like I said, hopefully we'll get some of this COVID money that we can apply to this thing and try to really make a difference. So otherwise, I think things are going pretty well so far this year, the 2nd semester. And again, it's been a very challenge for teachers doing virtual and in class. And I just appreciate all the time and effort from everybody in the school district of keeping things rolling the best that they can under the circumstance. So that's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Knox?
Not much. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Kenward, Mrs. Bonnick, Mr. Wedge, Mr. McDonald, Ms. Randazzo, and Ms. Gonzalez, and Mr. Rathbun on their orientation for Dennis and myself yesterday. Highly informative. There's so much going on behind the scenes. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned coming onto the board is really there's so much more than what we're at an hour and 15 minutes right now. There's so much more to it. So I really appreciate them and all the time they put into it. And it was great to see Mr. Rathbun at the wrestling meet last week. Saw him up there and went over and said hi. So that's great that he's getting out and really taking a look at, some of the activities going on around our school. And that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Mr. Green?
Just a couple of things. I would say that I'm going to go quickly, Madam President, but since you're about to beat my record for how fast we can get a board meeting done, I'm going to have to find something to read. Might take me a minute. I do want to thank the 120 parents that applied for all these various committees. I think it's great that we're reaching out to the community and that they're responding. They're not only, they're kind of putting their money where their mouth is, and I think that's great. I also, as Mr. Richards mentioned, appreciate all the work during the snow that came over the past week or two. My travels around the district when the roads in Chesterfield, New Baltimore had inches of snow on them, our school sidewalks were actually cleared. Our fire exits were actually cleared and our parking lots weren't plowed because our contractor hadn't got there yet. So very much appreciative to our maintenance and janitorial staff for getting out there and getting it done. I know it makes for some very long days for them because they're plowing that snow and shoveling those walks early in the morning, then they come in and do their quote normal job. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate Mr. Rathbun's communications that we've been seeing and the frequency and the depth that he's getting into in those written communications that we're seeing. As I've said before, I'm more about having too much information and selecting what I want to actually read and participate in than constantly starving for information. So I appreciate that. And obviously I was glad to have the additional couple days off. I'm sure our teachers were last week to tack on at the end of that winter break. The only question I would have is I would need to know possibly before we go on break that we're going to have the 2 extra days, because I could have stayed up north a few extra days had I known we weren't going to go back to school. So the teachers have voiced their displeasure with your inability to report the forecast. And I expect as we move forward, you'll get that corrected.
I will work on it. Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam President.
All right, and as for myself, I want to say welcome back to Mr. Wedge. I hope you're doing very well. It's nice to have you back, and we missed you. And Patrick touched on what I was going to say. I think, having over 100 volunteers of parents for something that we know is going to be a little bit of a time-intensive situation with the committee is a testament to our community's values. And that our community overwhelmingly supports our schools and wants us to succeed. So I think we can all be proud of that. And also what Mr. Middlestat touched on, I completely agree with, and honestly never even thought of it myself. But for the band program, but even if we have other feeder programs, essentially, that we may have had to put a stop to temporarily, those could have repercussions going forward for some of our programs when we can restart them. So maybe that's something to think about. And that was a great point by him. And then I just also want to thank all the board members for putting up with the multiple meetings that we had this month. I know they were long at times, and I appreciate everybody being flexible. And while we go through the superintendent process, I know at the last meeting we rolled out a lot of dates going forward, and so it will get a little bit heavy in the upcoming months, but I think it'll be well worth it. And so I just want to thank all the board members as well for your participation and just everything that you guys put in as well, and working together. So it's been a good few weeks. Okay, that is all I have. And so if we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Mr. Moses to adjourn at 8:19. Go ahead, call the roll.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yep.
Mr. Middlestate. Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:19. Everybody have a good night and be safe.